Hey, thank you for showing up for Lunch Bites today. This is part of an ongoing series where I answer one or two questions from viewers and clients on Wednesdays at noon. One of the questions I get asked by clients a lot really centers around inspections. In particular, what are sellers responsible for and what are buyers responsible for repairing and what repairs are required? There isn't really a cut and dry answer, although there are some general guidelines. Of course, the pandemic era market turned like everything on its ear, but they appear to be, or the market appears to be returning to some sort of rationality. For the last couple of years, it was quite apparent that sellers didn't feel responsible for completing much, if any, repairs, even though, or even if there was something structurally wrong with the property. Yeah, at that point, there was always the buyer that was willing to put in time and money and whatever. And while that may have been possible simply because of the number of buyers out there, as we return to a more normalized market, sellers won't be able to get away with not doing anything now. At the very minimum, they won't be able to sell as is at a premium, which is a long way of saying that market conditions will play a role in who pays for repairs. So standard inspections are pest, general home, and roof. More and more agents in the Bay Area are starting to have sewer lateral inspections done because a lot of the municipalities, they're just not replacing aging infrastructure quickly enough. Now, so there is, for a boilerplate contract, there's a 17-day contingency period for the buyer to perform any and all non-invasive inspections. By the end of that 17-day period, the seller and buyer should have negotiated any repairs that may need to be done. Frequently, buyers will ask sellers to repair any Section 1 items that come up on a pest report because these are the items that put the property most at risk right away. So, and that gets negotiated out. And then, of course, in addition to market conditions, there are some types of loans that may require certain repairs. There are two primary categories of loans that this falls under, and that's FHA and VA. Many first-time home buyers will get an FHA loan because there are more down payment assistance options with these types of loans. FHA loans often really get a bad rap from agents because they are largely misunderstood. On occasion, an FHA-approved appraiser will require a repair to be made to a property. Typically, though, these requirements are only for safety, security, or soundness. As an example, I represented a buyer in American Canyon who was purchasing a beautifully remodeled home, but there wasn't a rail around a rebuilt deck in the backyard. The appraiser called this a safety hazard and said that it would need a rail. So for my sellers out there, don't automatically assume that you're on the hook for having to pay for the repair. There isn't anything in the FHA guidelines that says, or at least that I'm aware of, that says that the seller has to pay for the repairs. So as an example, on that property, where the appraiser required a railing to be placed around the deck, maybe you have like a 1 foot drop, but he did recall it. We went back and forth, buyers, sellers, we discussed, we had conversations, and ultimately the buyer agreed to foot the bill. Similarly, with the VA loan, there will be many of the same minimum property requirements. Whereas in the past, the seller was responsible for everything. The VA, in an effort to make VA loans competitive, have made some significant changes in the last few years. As a result, a VA buyer can now assume a portion of the repairs. And while the 52-page VA manual on minimum property requirements explicitly says that cosmetic fixes shouldn't necessarily be a requirement, I can tell you that peeling paint is almost always called. So given the right market conditions, like the last couple of years, sellers might not be willing to do any work. However, the converse is true. In a market like the early 90s when my mom got into it, buyers may ask and receive everything on their wish list. So after all of that, the answer is that all repairs are negotiable and there isn't a set rule. Go figure, it's real estate. I look forward to seeing you next week on Lunch Bites. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.